myself before I get started so that you get some context. I've been working in the not-for-profit theater sector for over 40 years. I spent the first 20 years, give or take, producing new plays with the Manhattan Theater Club in New York City, a not-for-profit subscription theater. And after 20 years, I felt like I was ready for something new. And I came to TDF, which is a not-for-profit performing arts service organization in New York City. So I consider myself, I realized after I'd been there a couple of years, I'm a really lucky person because I got to work in a producing organization and understand what that was and work with artists, and then I got to move to a service organization, which is essentially moving from the micro to the macro. Then, let me tell you a little bit about TDF. TDF is a not-for-profit performing arts service organization, and we're dedicated to bringing the performing arts to everyone. Our mission is to sustain live theater and dance by engaging and cultivating a broad and diverse audience, and by eliminating barriers to attendance. We envision a world where the transformative experience of attending live theater and dance is essential, it's relevant, it's accessible, and it's inspirational. And something I've had an opportunity to do in this job is to think a lot about the impact of marketing versus the impact of audience development. I think that as the field has gotten better and better at marketing, it has gotten worse at audience development. In the beginning, there was no not-for-profit theater. We built it, we developed audiences, we started from scratch. And there were funders for this, and the world seemed very excited about it all. We grew, we proliferated, there were more and more of us, and eventually there were lots and lots of us. Some people even say too many of us. And suddenly we had to compete for market share. And the world changed, and the nature of funding changed, and we all had to generate more revenue with less dollars. We had to fill more seats for more performances. You are more than familiar with that pressure. And so I think we lost sight of the forest and we only saw the trees. We don't have any time to think about the audience 10 years from now. Next year is hard enough, and next week is still a challenge. And we learned that the best way to get an audience, the most effective way, was to go after the folks who are already interested, to go after people who are already cultural participants, and to get as much from them as we can, as often as we can. We can see this, I think, in the language that we use and the tools that we've developed. Segmented messaging. Segmented messaging, take the message, direct it at a segment of your audience, talk to the people who are there, figure out that segment, that message at the right time. Reactivate patrons. Don't look for new ponds. Awaken the fish who are in the pond that you already live in. Dynamic pricing. It's based on demand. It allows for the highest feasible prices. And there is a built-in preference for the folks who are the most loyal. Multi-buyers. On Broadway, Broadway marketing focuses almost exclusively on folks who have purchased tickets to multiple shows in the past. And finally, lookalike segments. The way to build an audience is to reach out to segments that look like the folks who are already there and get them in the door. You're all familiar with these terms. They serve this purpose. So our audiences keep looking like this. While this isn't true at every theater, it's generally true. The audience is predominantly white, is middle-aged or older, it's highly educated, it's economically well off, it's enthusiastic, it comes back over and over, and if our theaters are full and we're achieving the results that we need, does it really matter? To me, it matters a lot. It matters because there are a lot of people not in the picture, and everyone has a right to be there. It matters because the arts are for everyone, and because not everyone gets the exposure they need in order to participate effectively. And it matters because everyone needs to hear stories. Everybody needs to hear the voices of the other, and I believe that really deeply. And I suspect that most of you do as well. But that there are gatekeepers, there are your board, there are other folks who don't agree. And if you've got those folks to deal with, it matters for another really big reason. A few facts. The United States is on track to become a minority-majority country within the next 20 years. The Census Bureau has projected that this will occur by 2045. In fact, recent research suggests that it may be sooner, because white people are dying in greater numbers than they're being born. And if you look at this chart of generations, the bottom line of the chart is kids under 5, is people under 5, and in the under 5 demographic, we're already a minority-majority country. And so you can see, you watch that line and you can see how it shifts as you look forward. A lot of companies that sell things have already figured this out. There's a reason that when you call Verizon, you hear para información en español o prima nueva, right? And some of your theaters may do that, but most of us don't. I was recently, this is a screenshot from the letter from the CEO in the Delta Flight magazine. The magazine's in English. Every article in the magazine is in English, but the welcome letter to people on the plane is in both English and Spanish. So this isn't just a problem for 20 years from now, because the attitudes of young people now are already shifting. Young, educated professionals, the ones that you are desperate to get out of this restaurant and into your theater. Research in the corporate sector from 2014 revealed that 69% of students surveyed between the ages of 12 and 25 said that a lack of diversity would prevent them from joining a workplace as opposed to another workplace with a more diverse environment. TDF recently did research where we looked at how to more effectively build audiences for plays, and we found that for younger audiences, diversity, whether in the creative team, the cast, the themes of the play, was a somewhat or very important driver for them when deciding to buy tickets. And this was not true for folks who were older than them. And I'm guessing, although we didn't ask this question, that the same probably holds true if you wanted to ask them, you know, who would you prefer to have in the audience around you? So, what can we do? First thing to do, I think, is start with the research. Basically, virtually at the moment, all the research that we do is based on responses and behaviors of people already going to the theater. We are not looking at the people who don't go. And in looking at current audiences, we are generally looking at white, highly educated, economically stable folks, the ones who are in that picture. And it makes sense, because it's really expensive to get to the people who don't go. We don't even know where to find them. And when you talk to researchers about, let's look at that, they're like, it's going to cost so much money because we don't even know how to start. And it's really hard to get an honest answer out of people as to why they don't go to the theater. The default answer will be there's not enough time. Because who actually wants to say, I don't feel welcome at that organization. I'm not smart enough. It's too expensive. But maybe if enough of us started asking those questions, we could get some folks to do the work with us. Arts Boston, with funding from the Barr Foundation, has recently launched a program called the Audience Lab. And the goals of this project are to build an organizational investment to engage and retain more audiences of color, to make a commitment to using existing data for audience development strategies, and to increase the interest, participation, and trust of audiences of color. And they're doing it with data. They're using the existing data in their big list to look at audience members of color who are currently participating in the arts. They then have taken that data and they're working with a data analytics firm, not an arts firm, but a data analytics firm that has mostly political clients, to try and build a model of what that typical audience member of color looks like. And then they're taking that modeling and they're working with marketing folks with particular expertise in reaching diverse consumers to develop appropriate marketing materials. It's slow work, but it can be done. I think the first thing you have to do when you think about this work is you have to change the metrics. One of the arguments against for instance, against giving away comps as an audience development tool is that generally speaking, if you give away 100 tickets, only 20 or 25 people will come back a second time. And that doesn't seem very effective. On the other hand, if you change the way you thought about that, you said, well, that's a 25% return, that begins to not feel so bad. So what if, as part of your marketing efforts, you diverted a small part of your budget and started doing some real audience development programs? What could you do and what would it look like? We're really lucky at TDF because that's what we're supposed to do. That's what we get funded to do. We're supposed to build audiences, and we understand that the ROI can be low in the near term, and it's a slow process. So I'm going to give you an example of a couple of programs quickly so that you can get a sense of how this works. The first one is the Wendy Wasserstein Project, which is a project that started 20 years ago with Wendy when she came to us, and she took one group of students, one group of 8 students to the theater. 6 times during the year, they went to the theater, and afterwards they had pizza, and they talked about it, and they wrote in their journals. Highly impactful, but it was 8 kids. Second year was 2 groups. People were saying, you're never going to get money for this. What's the point? It's too small. Now, we have 24 groups of 8 every year, and we have close to 2,500 alumni who've gone through the program. And these people, now adults, most of whom come back to New York City after school, they're carrying it forward. We have students, alum in the program who've become teachers, and they bring their kids to our Introduction to the Theater program, introducing yet another generation. Another program that we have is something called our Autism Theater Initiative, and part of that is we give autism-friendly performances. We work with shows to do autism-friendly performances. A lot of you may do this. Started with one performance. Now we're up to 5 sensory-friendly performances a year, 4 families. We have repeat participants. We have a database of over 8,000 families who attend shows. And perhaps most importantly, from anecdotal experience, we know that some of the families with kids on the spectrum are able to transition to so-called regular performances after a series of shows with us. Our Create New York program. The program works with 1 community organization per borough, 5 boroughs in New York, 1 cohort a year for 3 years. So year 1, group A, year 2, groups A and B, C, A, B, C. You see how it goes. And each cohort gets to select 4 performances. They go to a Broadway play, an off-Broadway play, an event in their neighborhood, and one what I call dealer's choice. 4 times during the year, and then conversation back in the community afterwards. And then at the end of the program year, they self-curate an event in their community, which celebrates, reflects on, and shares their experiences with the wider community. So not only are they going, they're bringing it back, they're talking about it, it's a community value. There are some commonalities in these programs. The first is start small. Don't let other people tell you that you aren't serving enough people, you aren't moving fast enough. It's taken a long time to build the audience we have, and it's going to take even longer to open doors and build a new audience. Don't be a know-it-all. Admit what you don't know. The Autism Theater Initiative, we could not have done that program successfully without reaching out to experts in the field who worked with us. Do not do this by yourself. Find partners, but find partners whose values align with your own. Create New York, we need community organizations that value the arts. Autism Theater Initiative, we needed productions that were willing to make the accommodations in the performance in order to make it accessible for those kids. Make it last. Build sustainability into the program. Don't do a program in and out, done and gone in 3 years. You've got to figure out how to do the program and then continue it forward. We're lucky we have a membership program, so as people finish the programs, then we can give them the membership program. So there are commonalities. There are things to think about in that. And if you do it all, I want to leave you with our vision of the world that we think that this can empower. For everyone who ever saw something live on stage or dearly wished they could, for every kid who wonders what if, for every teacher who's looking to light the spark, and for everyone who wants to know the thrill of live experience but thinks it's not for them. We're here to say it's for all of us. For the enthusiasts, the young, the old, the newbies and the nostalgic, the critics, the tourists, the purists, and the innocents, for those electric moments that change how we see, think, feel, and live, for all those players, producers, and storytellers who make the magic, for today's shows and audiences and tomorrow's, for everyone who wants to feel the power of the performing arts. Thank you.